Friday, and thanks for tuning in to RadioFreeRunCliff.org. In this show in particular, correct me if I'm Norm, I'm your host, Norm. I'm thrilled to be here tonight with Ricardo Gutierrez De Zubiaurre Garcia Urtiaga.
Yes, hi, Norm.
Which part of that did I pronounce correctly?
All of it.
You're
all of
the
it.
best.
Yeah, I gave up on that a long time
I want
ago.
more friends like you.
It's even hard to do it in Spanish. You know,
Yeah?
So, yeah.
Well, what's the deal with all these names? Your daughter said you have no middle name, and that would make all of these things
Yeah.
extra surnames.
So my parents wanted to torture me, and they wanted me to have a middle name, Martin, as a middle name, which is my maternal grandfather.
Martin?
Yeah, my middle name. So, but they, somehow they were nice to me, and they didn't, because they gave me instead 4 last names. My sisters do have 2 first names.
2 first names.
Yeah.
Do they have a middle name?
No, we don't use middle names. It's
Okay.
Maria del Pilar, and Maria Begoña.
It's what?
Maria Begoña Elvira. Begoña has a middle name, Elvira.
Okay.
Elvira.
Elvira.
Yeah.
I love
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
So these names, do they all sort of refer to a particular ancestor?
Yeah. We belong to an ethnic group called Basque people.
Uh-huh.
They've been a very insular group in the north of Spain, southwest of France. They're traced 9,000 years into wherever they're from. We are from. So in the Basque people, everybody and everything is named after something in the landscape. So it's what we call toponymic, which is my first Basque last name, Zubiaurre, means from the other side of the bridge.
Okay.
Or in front of the bridge. Urtiaga, I don't know what it is. And the Gutierrez and the Garcia are just plain Spanish names. Gutierrez can be a Spanish size Gutenberg or Gautier in French. And Garcia, I don't know. So, yeah.
Wow. And somebody said you always get pulled over you used to get pulled over by TSA every time you were coming and going from the country. Because they're like, what the hell is this? You must be a terrorist.
No, I mean, I was, first I came to New York as a student. And then when I got married, I became a permanent resident. And I was a permanent resident for like good 20 years or a little longer than that.
Are you now still?
No, now I'm a citizen. I became a citizen.
Okay.
So what happens when you have 4 last names, every computer in the world will truncate your names and will change it. So if you run a credit check on me, I have like 16 aliases, right?
Oh, is that helpful or?
No, because people first misspell the name, and then the computers, depending on who programmed them, basically just change the name.
But do you have different credit scores associated with different names?
There's
All of a sudden I'm thinking,
I am a
this could
Gemini, and there's 2 of me, but no, there's only 1 credit score for both.
Okay,
So, yeah.
for both of you.
Yeah.
And what is that? What's your credit score?
My friend Freddie used to say, which one I'm talking to today?
Really?
Yeah.
Is it it like that?
Yeah, with me, yeah. And you never know which one you're talking to.
And can you describe the personalities, the proclivities?
I have no idea. I just live with them, So.
There's no sort of like psychic mirror to help you understand what these 2 sides are like.
No, I'm just brilliant. And with it comes a mental disease, So.
I see. It's, and that's a popular thought that I never quite liked, but people do, that really smart people can't often have mental illnesses or difficult, they have trouble coping in the sort of the regular world.
Well, and then life teaches you really are a dumbass, So
maybe that's the other side of you.
Yeah,
I know
prevalent one.
That's for me. Like, sometimes, oh my God, I'm so smart. And then like most of the time it's like, you were such a dope.
Yeah.
And hence the name of the show. Correct me if I'm Norm.
Yes, I will.
Because, good. Please do. So you came to New York as a student.
Yeah.
What year was this?
It was 1988. It was the winter of 1988.
Uh-huh.
And I went to School of Visual Arts, and our dorm was Sloan House.
Sloan House.
Yeah, on 34th and 9th.
Uh-huh.
I believe B&H is now there as a reference for those of you who
Okay.
did not live in New York in the late 80s, early 90s.
Right.
It was our school dorms, and I was on the 9th floor for maybe about 6 months or so, and then I got a place in Greenwich Village. So, yeah,
Closer to campus.
yeah, closer to campus. Yeah, and then from there I moved to Lower East, to the Alphabet Avenue B and 3rd.
So you came here. How old were you?
I was older. I was 22.
Okay.
Yeah, I tried to go to architecture in Mexico City. I didn't apply myself. They kicked me out. So I always loved photography. And the same university I was in, I got a little desperate. It's like, how am I going to explain to my father that I'm no longer in school? So, I immediately enrolled in a 2-year photography program, professional.
So you didn't have to explain you weren't in school. You just had to say, hey, I'm transferring to a different program.
I'm like, no, I had to say I failed. I don't like it. I can't stand my professors. And in the meantime, while I figure it out, I'm going to do this. So he was okay.
Oh, well, that's nice.
Yeah.
So were they generally supportive of your folks?
Well, I think, what happens to every parent is like it goes to a point where they no longer have a choice and they have to support you, So that was
if they
me.
can.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, of course, if they can. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, parents support you in many ways. It doesn't have to be like, yeah. So,
And you came from Mexico City.
Yeah.
To New York City.
Yeah.
And had you been to New York City prior to matriculating?
I think I was 7 the first time and 14 the second time.
Okay.
Yeah. Both times in the winter.
Right.
It was the first time I've seen snow in my life. Apparently, when I was 3 years old, it snowed in Mexico City, but don't ask me.
Right. Well, it's got some elevation there, right?
Yeah. 7,000 feet above sea level.
Right. There's a lot of elevation.
Or a little more than 7, something like that. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a different air. It's tropical, but, it's dry. So it's a very nice, it's a city that has a very nice weather.
Right. And do you think fondly of Mexico City?
I love it. It's wild. It's always been wild.
It's your hometown.
Yeah. When I grew up, it was a very, very conservative country and a very, very conservative city. There wasn't a lot to do. So we had to figure it out. We had to find parties. We would go in convoys of cars finding parties. We would, try to find edgy bars. It was great. But all you got as music was like, bossa nova or some guy with a guitar at a bar singing bossa nova.
Right.
So, or Mexican corridos or something like that.
Mexican what?
Corridos.
Okay.
Revolutionary songs.
Uh-huh.
So, we didn't have concerts. We didn't have any foreign influences. We had them on the radio. We had them at the record stores, but no venues, really nothing to do.
So the big music acts did not come to Mexico City at that point in time?
It came around the time I was already 17, 18.
Right.
Yeah.
They started showing up. And who were the first big acts? Were you like, oh, I got to go see that?
First big act was Queen.
Uh-huh.
And that was in the city of Puebla. It wasn't in Mexico City.
Okay.
And I have one friend that went, and he said it was great. It was legendary.
I'll bet.
And I believe the audience actually destroyed the set, something. But I might be lying about this. So.
And this is Queen, and you said Pueblo?
In Puebla, the city of Puebla.
Puebla.
Yeah, it's about maybe 90 minutes from Mexico City, south of Mexico City. Yeah.
And so, who was the first big act concert you saw?
That was in the Basque Country. It was in San Sebastian.
Oh.
Yeah. And I think it was Al Jarreau.
Al Jarreau.
Or Jimmy Cliff.
Right.
Yeah, one of the two.
Right.
I've also seen. Ray Charles also at the Jazz Festival in San Sebastian.
Right.
And Tina Turner in Bilbao at the at the bullfighting.
And so, at the bullfight?
Tina Turner was great.
I'll bet.
It was raining. because it's always raining in the Basque Country. So it was raining, and she was on her heels, and she was slipping on the stage. And at some point, she was getting electrocuted, and she just kept on going. Yeah, the most amazing thing I've seen in my life. Yeah.
It's spectacular when you see performers who clearly have that idea. I'm here to deliver a show to entertain these people.
No, everybody loved her. She made a huge impression.
Right.
Yeah. It was amazing. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Love that. So you said the Basque Country.
Yeah.
You were born in Mexico.
I was born in Mexico City.
And you think of that as your hometown.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I love Mexico
Do you
City.
think of that as your home country?
Well, no, my home country is the United States.
Okay, good.
I am twice an immigrant. Once a refugee, twice an immigrant.
Right.
I don't belong here. I don't belong there. Growing up in Mexico, every summer, all my friends went to Disneyland, but every summer we would go to the Basque Country. We would cross the Atlantic and go to the Basque Country. And, and it would take forever to get there. But
right.
we would go we would go for like 2 or 3 months.
And how would you cross the Atlantic?
By plane.
Okay.
Yeah. At the beginning, planes couldn't make they couldn't take off Mexico City with a full tank of gas.
Right.
Because it was too high up and not enough oxygen. Now they do. But we had to go to the Dominican Republic and then to Spain, or we had to go to Quebec or Montreal and then Spain, or, Houston or Dallas and so on and forth.
Right.
So now there's planes that actually can do the whole.
Right.
I think it's 18 hours.
And so you're growing up in Mexico.
Yeah.
But your family and your relatives are in Spain.
Yeah. So both my parents' family migrated to Mexico in the 1930s.
Okay.
They met in Mexico, already being Mexican citizens, both of them. But my mother's father, who actually was a very interesting person, he bought a house on the French side of the Basque Country, very close to the border, because they were not allowed in Spain for many years. They were not allowed because they were with the losing side.
This is your mother's family.
Yeah. So
the losing side.
Yeah.
Who were they?
The Spanish Republic.
Okay.
It's like a mini World War II where the fascists won. And they took over the country.
The fascists won?
Yeah, they won, yeah.
What can we learn from that so that fascists never win again?
Well, I don't know. I've lived it. Right. It's not pretty. But, it's like my entire family comes from there. You see, this is the thing. My mother's father, they were in Spain, he was working for an oil company, and he worked at a refinery. And the syndical anarchist tried to throw him in a barrel in an oil barrel lit on fire.
Wait, the what anarchists?
The syndical anarchists.
Syndical anarchists, yeah. Gotcha.
And it was a friend of his that saved him, talked everybody out of doing that to him.
So they chucked him in an oil can?
No, they were going to chuck him in an oil can lit on fire.
Because that's what they were doing.
Yeah, I mean, it's like this is the Spanish Civil War was about to blow up, and he was part of management. He's the son. I'm not sure if he's the son or grandson of a coal miner. He's so smart that he, not even with the education, he becomes like an engineer in the refinery, right?
Right.
So he's part of management because he's like a very special human being. Like we all know a very special human being.
Right.
And he grabs his whole family, including his mother and his sister and his 6 children, and moves them all to France.
Wait, back to the friend saving him from...
Yeah.
Was there a name for that that death?
I don't have the name.
No, but for that particular kind of death.
What I was trying to say here is like that he was a very special man. He had friends on all spectrums of the political world, right?
Right.
And that was a polarized world, right? And he also had, not only did he have friends on political, he had friends on both sides of the Atlantic.
Right.
And he helped everybody the same.
Right.
He I don't know if you call it transcending. He was a refugee. He was with the Republic. But, he had friends on both sides. He did not choose when it came to people, when it came to community. So the day he died, nobody published it. And, like 400 people showed up to his memorial, to his wake, not even his memorial. So this is how loved he was. He was,
And where was this funeral?
in Mexico City.
Okay.
Yeah. He died around the time one of my cousins got married in Cihuatanejo. And that's about the time my son was conceived. So my first child. So
who's how old now?
He's 26, 27. I forget how old he is.
That's okay.
26.
And so I'm guessing there was a whole group of people from the Basque Country there who left and went to Mexico.
Well, when the Republic lost the war, there were entire ships full of people. Both my parents' families came to Mexico. My father's family was invited by the Mexican president with a bunch of intellectuals to bring them because he was a smart man. He brought people that could actually change the country. And my mother's father, because of his connections with British Petroleum, he found somebody that proposed a business in Mexico that actually paid for them to go to Mexico. But this is before the war ended, or even before the war exploded.
And did Mexico have sort of an open arm policy?
Well, this is the 1930s, right?
Come on in.
Well, Mexico City had it wasn't even a tenth of what it is now.
Right.
It was a country that, to see it, you had to go on a dual wheelie, truck. You had to get on top of it. There was nothing, no infrastructure, nothing.
Right.
These people came, and you have accountants, and you have lawyers, and you have engineers, and you have all these refugees that one way or another helped turn Mexico into what it is today.
Right. A modern city.
Yeah, no, and Mexicans were there too, and there was a lot of educated Mexicans. And,
Sure.
It's not that, but they also, like my father started what is now Colegio en Mexico. He was one of the people that started. It was called Casa de España, the House of Spain, and then the House of Spain. Then became El Colegio en Mexico, which is the humanities. It's a very important humanities school in Latin America. His name is nowhere around, but they have done an homage to him, and it's him and those 11 intellectuals that came, invited.
Is this a phrase people understand? The 11 intellectuals are these people? No.
A lot of it got lost in history.
Right.
You basically hear about the main protagonists, but you don't hear about everybody, unless the school mentions them. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. A lot of them got forgotten because they went into exile, and they were in no man's land. For example, the painter Diego Rivera.
Right.
He was in Madrid for a long time when my grandparents lived in Madrid. And he would come to my grandmother's tea or whatever she had, or conversation that she had on Saturdays. And she was a very interesting woman, actually.
Your grandmother?
Yeah.
Maternal, paternal?
Paternal.
Uh-huh.
She was one of the first 3 feminists in Spain. So, but 3 or 4 or 5, whatever. Diego Rivera used to go to her house, and when they arrived to Mexico at some art opening, he saw her and came across their room. He was already very famous. He crossed the room to say hello to her. He was very fond of her. But my grandfather never wrote about Diego Rivera because all these guys had a revolver, in their pants. So he never really,
He never rolled up on Diego Rivera.
He never did anything like that. He never wrote about anybody, or, it ended. He did teach at the National University, and he did, he continued writing articles and stuff like that. But that's it. They were in exile, and that's it. Their lives were, done.
Well, done. But they, it seemed that they were creating new lives in Mexico City. No.
The one that created a new life was their son. My father didn't. You know, he really came through. He came through with nothing. He started selling rugs, and then the Bank of Mexico grabbed him as an analyst, as an economist, and then my mother's father actually poached him out of the Bank of Mexico and brought him to work for him.
Wow.
And and they were all stars. They were all master of the universe. I grew up with a lot of privilege, but it's hard to understand how much privilege.
Why? Why is that hard to understand?
First of all, we would go to Europe, right?
Right.
In the 60s, 1968 was the first time I went to Europe. So, we could afford to do that.
Right.
And, and we have homes there, and we have homes here, and we have cars, and we have people that work for my parents, that did everything for us. It was a different time also.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, more than 60 years ago.
Yeah.
A whole different time.
Yeah.
So you grew up in Mexico.
Yes, I did. Yeah.
And
it was great.
But all your people were Spanish.
They were all Spaniards, yes.
Right.
Yeah. And
was there a distinction in Mexican culture between Mexican?
So Mexico was an old Spanish colony.
Okay.
And after the independence was actually driven by those who were children of Spaniards who were born in Mexico that were treated as lesser because they were born in the Americas, even though they were from Spanish parents.
Thought of as lesser
they're called criollos.
By whom? By the people who were 100%?
By the Spaniards.
Right.
Right? So they were a lesser class because they were born there. So they would send the pregnant mothers to Spain so they would have their children in Spain. So, so they would suffer. This is the level of it. So, in 1930s, Mexico is still in maybe the 1800s, the 1700s.
Right.
Well, that's an exaggeration. I'm sorry, I exaggerate a lot. But when they got to Mexico, Mexico went through a revolution around 1910. And a lot of the land got taken away from the Spaniards, from these descendants of Spaniards or the Spaniards. And like all revolutions, it started by the middle class, and it started by, like the independence, it started by the same people, right?
Right.
It is the people that started the revolution. It's not the poor, and it's the smart people, the educated.
Yes. Do you think that those people, that class of people, will ever start a revolution here in the U.S.?
I don't know.
Today there was this don't spend anything, don't shop.
Yeah.
Sort of the precursor.
That doesn't work. So
why do you think that doesn't work?
You either grab the pitchforks and the torches, and
right.
And, it's just boycotting something really never works. Now, the thing is, when these refugees from the Spanish Republic came to Mexico, all the Spaniards called them, because the Mexican government took away all their lands after the revolution. They had filed a complaint with the Spanish courts, and the Spanish Republic before the war said, "Screw you! It's not even this country." So when they arrived in Mexico, they called them all Reds. Right? They were all supposed to be communists, even though some were, some weren't. So they called them Reds. So they didn't help them. They didn't do anything for them, and so and this is, I'm gonna speculate that old Spanish colony still exists. Yeah, even though it's a post-globalization, modern democracy that now has a government of the left,
right,
running it, a country that has been so conservative. Which I think is good.
You think it's good?
Yeah, I think it's good that, it's complicated, but, I think it's good that people can vote and people can decide how they're going to be governed, even
right.
if you don't like the person who people vote for. Is, I have a dear friend that says elections have consequences, right? And they have consequences in every country. The good thing is that where there's still a democracy, and you maintain that democracy going. So my entire family is part of that conflict, right? I grew up with that conflict. It was ever present. Yeah.
How very interesting. A part of your family history, a part of your sort of like DNA.
Yeah.
The generational trauma.
I'm a mountain boy, man.
What does that mean, a mountain
plant-based
boy?
Mountain boy. If you see the Basque Country, it's like, it's vertical, you know.
Right.
So, yeah.
Interesting. All right. So back to New York. You
Yeah.
came here. You were 20-something.
Yeah.
You'd been here a couple times before. You enrolled
Yeah.
at SVA.
Yeah. Culture shock. Yeah.
Yeah. What
Yeah.
was that like?
I haven't gotten over it. You know, New York was very interesting. You know, people complain about what New York is now. They didn't see it in the 80s and 90s. Maybe you remember. You know, we all sort of remember how it was. It was rough. You know.
Yeah.
And I was told, don't go to New York. Something bad's going to happen to you. And, you know,
Right.
Yeah.
And you'd probably seen movies where people went to New York and something bad happened
The
to them.
70s are, you know, the 70s are, they're forever.
Right. Well, what movies had you seen about New York that scared you most about what you might find when you landed there?
Zero. I came here not knowing anything.
Really?
I had seen some, you know, movies about New York. I've seen Starsky and Hutch, you know, the television
Wait,
show.
they weren't even in New York.
And
Weren't
what-
they in San Francisco or something?
Who knows? To me, you all look
It's all
the
the
same.
same to you.
Yeah. It's like, you know, television is culture, period. You know?
It
So,
is, yeah.
Yeah.
That's funny. So you didn't really have any preconceived notions, but people were telling you, like, oh, just be careful. You're going to get hurt in New York.
Yeah.
And did you have any close calls, any scrapes with...
Every day. I mean, scrapes with what? You know, it's a little bit like close calls. Did I get a gun pointed at me?
Yeah.
I got a gun pointed at me in Mexico City when I was 17, 18.
Oof.
I didn't get a gun pointed at me in New York. You know?
So did New York seem manageable to you because of your experience in Mexico City?
It was very different.
Less
I was
stuff.
alone. I did not have the power behind me. You know,
The power of...
I could be accountable.
You could be accountable.
Yeah.
Were you not accountable in your youth in Mexico City?
I was always very responsible. Always very responsible. I never really got in trouble.
Which is a synonym for accountable, kind of.
A lot of I know a lot of people that gone into a lot of trouble, and you know, and they sort of bought their way out of it.
Right.
You know, I was very careful. I
was
did
that in the
not
back-
I did not want to be that.
But was that in the back of your mind? Like if shit really hit the fans, you could buy your way out of it?
Yes. Yes.
Right.
If
And in
something
New York,
very bad happens, you can buy your way out.
and in New York City, did that thought disappear?
Yeah, but it was never really present because I never really behaved that way.
Right.
You know?
Right.
I've always been careful, and I've always been mindful of everybody around me, and you know, yeah. So maybe other people had other experiences. I did not hang out with Mexicans at all when I came to New York.
Who did you hang out with? Who were your first friends?
Oh, Long Island, New Jersey.
Yeah,
Hey,
other
Ricky.
students at
Yeah,
SVA.
yeah, yeah.
Hey, Ricky. Ricky.
You know, it's just normal Americans,
Right.
middle class Americans, you know, poor Americans, and maybe a rich one here and there, but I never really knew who they were. So,
Right. So you were in art school at SVA. You
Yeah.
were studying photography.
Yeah,
And what kind of photography did you want to do?
I went all over the spectrum.
Okay.
At the end, I graduated doing like tabletop photography.
Oh.
And you know, it's part of the reason how I ended up here. I used to photograph for a craftsperson named Wendy Stevens, who does these beautiful accessories in metal. And you know, and so my former roommate and friend Joe Fig, he worked for her, and she moved from Avenue A and I think 10th Street. She moved to East Kingston, and she bought
East Kingston right here.
a small sewing factory, and she set up shop there. And then, so my friend Joe moved to Kingston, so I would come visit. And that's how I know all of this place.
What year was that?
91.
Okay.
Yeah, 90, 91, somewhere around there.
And how would you get up to Kingston? Take the bus?
I would take the bus, and sometimes I'd take the train. And that's how I knew Rancliffe. And, when he'd say, "Oh, I'm just over the bridge, why don't you take the train?" I'd just take the train.
I'll come
and
pick
show
you
up
up.
here. Yeah. It was all very different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. What was East Kingston like at that point? It's a peculiar little enclave now.
It's like everybody knew your business. That's the impression I got. A small
Right.
community, everyone knew your business. My friend Wendy was great, and she's just beautiful, tall woman.
Is she still there?
No, she moved to, she got a kid, she got a husband. I don't know if they're married, but they moved to the middle Pennsylvania, by Arensburg, Pennsylvania.
Okay.
And from there, they moved to a suburb in Philadelphia because she needed a more urban, closer urban experience than the
Gotcha.
geographical middle Pennsylvania.
Right.
Which was great. It was Amish country.
Oof.
We went to visit. Her husband was a farrier.
Oh.
So
So that's a good place to be.
So he became a furniture maker, and then he gave the ferrying business to somebody else, and that guy would take us and we'd meet the Amish and go to the farm. So it was something very special.
I'll bet.
Yeah. Yeah.
Huh.
I've been everywhere, man.
Everywhere. Well, back to New York City.
Yeah.
When you first moved there, you moved from Sloane House down to the village.
Bleecker and Sullivan.
Bleecker and Sullivan. Oh,
Yeah.
nice.
So-
So that's a good place for nightlife.
There was
for a young
that
person.
There was that mafia boss, the one that walked around in his bathrobe.
Oh yeah,
His social club was right
right. What was his
under
name?
our building.
Matt. What was that guy's name? Yeah.
No. It was another
like
family.
Fat Tony or some. Crap
No.
So you moved down there, and
Yeah.
Sullivan Street was social clubs.
Yeah, lots. There was one his social club.
Right.
You could see him walk on the street. There always was a guy walking about 20 feet behind him.
Right.
So rough.
And so, who did you think he was at that point? People
We all
whispered.
knew who he was.
People whispered. Like,
Yeah.
Oh, that's so and so.
No, they go like, "Oh, there goes so and so."
Right.
Yeah. So,
So you're living down there.
yeah.
Oh, Matt's got the answer. What's the answer, Matt? Oh, Vinny the Chin.
Being in the Chin Gigante.
Gigante.
Yes.
Um,
And there was always a Fed car parked somewhere on Sullivan Street,
oh,
taking pictures. Always.
what a horrible life.
Yeah.
It's one of the things I think I watched The Sopranos. I was like, that's not a good life. It's not a glamorous life.
Yeah. Sometimes I wonder, maybe they didn't have a choice.
Maybe.
Maybe.
And did you ever have, sort of
No. I'm going to answer that.
flirt with the
before-
life of crime?
No.
Yeah.
My life of crime was very brief. Yeah. I was very young.
Very brief.
Very brief.
All right. Well, let's hear about that.
I got shot at, so
In
I
Me-
don't talk about that.
in Mexico City?
Yes.
This was the time somebody pulled a gun on you, and
No, that was another time. This
This is
time
the
we
time
got
somebody pulled a gun in and pulled the trigger.
from their houses. They shot at us. Yeah.
And were they aiming at you or just anybody?
I have no idea. I just ran.
Right.
Yeah.
Didn't stick around to find out.
No.
Clever boy.
Oh,
from-
hi. Why are you shooting? me?
Yeah. Why? This hurts my feelings.
Yeah. But I'm not gonna go beyond this. It's not. It's
Okay.
just petty shit.
All right. Good.
Stuff you do when you're 16, 17.
So then you moved from Soho to the East Village. Is that what you said?
Yeah, to the alphabet. Yeah, Avenue B and 3rd.
Avenue B and 3rd.
Yeah.
And what year is this?
So I am part of that. That awful breed of people called, what do they call us when
Gentrifiers.
Gentrifiers. Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't know back then I was that. It was just affordable, so I went in.
Right.
Yeah.
And, it's not your fault.
It is because I went there. Yeah.
Well, to look for affordable
You got to
rent.
be responsible. Man,
No,
for
but,
what you do.
when was this? 1992?
92, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so, people weren't thinking that
Yeah,
way. Like,
91 or
we need
92,
to
yeah.
preserve, the character of this, bombed out part of New York City.
It was, it was something.
Right.
You always-
we
yeah.
need to not push the crack
Yeah.
dealers out.
They were so happy everybody in the neighborhood was so happy when they learned I spoke Spanish. They were all like, relieved, So, yeah.
And so were you? So
No,
you,
I did not buy me any protection.
That's what. You need to stop correctly guessing my next question. It's disheartening, and they're going to replace me with an AI interviewer.
It's my
if you're doing
twin.
it.
Yeah, it's
but
my
it's
other
like
twin.
shit as
It's
that.
not me. It's my other twins making me do it.
But it didn't afford you any protection. But did it get you friends where your other peers?
No. It didn't get me anything. It was wild. I loved it. I
Yeah.
loved living on. I went through the Tompkins Square Park thing. I think I was already done by that time.
The
yeah,
riots.
yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And did you go to Wigstock when it was in Tompkins Square Park?
Once.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the East Village in the 80s was really one of the most
King Tut's
exciting
Wawa
places.
Hut.
Oh, yeah.
That then became something else.
Yeah. And Pyramid.
The Pyramid.
7A.
Yeah, 7A. And that bar on 7B,
Yeah, I think it was called 7B.
that is on like every movie.
Right.
Yeah. I used to go there. And then there was on 6th Street, there was like this, I think closer to Avenue D, there was like this, you went to the under apartment, like the basement apartment, and just a little window would open, and it was all pimps.
All
So-
pimps?
So if anybody has ever been in that place, please let me know, because I did not dream it.
Right. So this is like 6th between C and D.
Yes, somewhere
a
around
basement,
there. Yeah.
like
It was on the south
So-
side. I remember.
a pimp social club.
Yeah, no, the men were dressed like pimps. It was like wow. It was like wow.
Well, if they were
I
dressed
just-
like pimps, they probably were, right?
I just stayed quiet and drank my drink. That's it.
How did you happen upon this place?
My friend Greg.
Your friend Greg.
Yeah.
I felt, let's hear more about this friend Greg. He sounds interesting.
Yeah, and I used to hang out at a place called Under Acme that had bands.
Under Acme was fucking amazing.
Yeah.
They had great bands and great drop-in acts.
Yeah, I I would do lights for them.
Oh, you did?
For nothing, yeah. I would just go there because I had nothing else to do. My friend Eddie did the sound.
Right,
Greg was the manager. That's how I met Greg.
right.
And he is a godfather of both my children.
He's a what?
Godfather of my children.
Okay.
Joe is also the godfather of my children. But
Greg the Chin,
yeah,
Godfather.
No. Gregory Coates.
Gregory Coates. I saw him in one of the documentary films you made.
Yes, with Susan Tawara. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Say that
that
again.
was fun. It's Susan Tawara.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's Susan Tamara.
He's like a big Japanese television person.
Well,
And he's a performance artist.
yeah.
And he did a performance in Allentown, Pennsylvania. Yeah.
In
the middle of
Allentown.
American Rust Belt. Yeah.
And okay, so for people just listening, trying to follow along at home, you've had so many different careers.
Yes.
You've always been sort of a visual artist, and that
Yeah.
has expressed itself in all kinds of different
Yes,
ways,
yes.
including being a director of photography
Yeah.
and a director and all this stuff.
Yeah.
And one of the things that one of your companies did was produce these little mini documentaries.
Yeah.
For
and some television too.
for
Yeah.
industry or commerce
Yeah,
or
yeah,
art.
Yeah. Or for fun too.
And, well, for what?
For fun.
For fun.
Yeah.
And one of them was about this guy, Susan Tamara.
Tawara.
All right.
Tawara.
Good.
Like
Pretend
American
I said that.
Tawara.
Yeah.
Tawara.
And how did you get that gig?
Well, again, my friend Greg from Under Acme.
So funny.
Yeah, they were living with his wife Kiki. They lived on Christie Street, and their loft got basically they kicked them out, so they moved to Allentown.
Christie
And-
Street.
And they had a nice loft on Christie Street, and
Which is like Lower East Side Chinatown.
yeah,
kinda.
yeah. Before it changed.
Oh.
Right before everything changed. When I lived on the Lower East Side, when I lived on Avenue B, I could see people shooting heroin, in front of buildings. So
Right.
this is,
Which is not a good thing to see.
no, it isn't. No. So it was, it was that New York, but that New York has changed, and it's no longer that. And it amazes me when I go and I visit, and it's like we wouldn't even walk on this street,
Right.
So it was, I mean, the Spanish would have saved me, but no, why take a chance, right?
There were streets where I lived in the West Village, in the meatpacking district, where I wouldn't walk in the sidewalk. I'd walk in the middle of the street.
The meatpacking district was so much fun.
In the 80s, yeah.
Yeah, there was the vault.
The
Anybody that knew the vault back then, my hat goes to the.
Yeah. I don't think I ever went in there, but it
Yeah.
was, notorious.
Yeah, and there was a nightclub that my mother's children loved. It was called the Refrigerator.
Yeah, sure. 14th Street.
Yeah. You went down. It was a death trap.
I was just going to say it was a fire trap.
No,
it's like, that place. You'd walk in and be like, wait, the only way out is right there. There's no other exit.
Yeah. You're in a refrigerator, actually, a real meat refrigerator. And the thing is,
freebasing freak blows themselves up.
This was years after the Happy Land Social Club fire.
Yes.
So, every venue in New York got closed after that.
Yeah.
Right? But this is years afterwards, and it's like you go down there, and there's no way you're going to survive something there.
No.
So, yeah.
No, and I
love New
did
York,
not
man.
like that.
Yeah. It's kind of like Mexico City.
Yeah.
It's changed, but it used to be kind of like Mexico City. You never knew if you're going to live through it.
Yeah.
It's great.
And you're excited. You miss those days, those exciting days?
No.
Oh.
I can do it anytime.
Okay.
But I don't miss them.
All right, where? You can say you can do that anytime. Supposing you want that kind of experience.
I love my fat orange cat. I love my birds. I love seeing the sunset. I mean,
Okay.
I'm in heaven where I am right now.
But supposing you wanted that gritty, slightly dangerous feeling, like going down in a bad neighborhood to a fire trap. You said you could do it anytime. Where would you go to get that experience these
So
days?
the thing is, you see, I have these two friends around that are very close by, and they want to do that with me in Mexico City. I don't want to do that.
You should name names.
Because when I was young, you could get away with it, and people wouldn't touch you. But today, nobody cares.
Who are these friends? Is it Kimmy Berlin?
Nope.
Tell me if it's Kimmy Berlin.
Well, I'll take her anywhere, anytime.
Watch it, mister.
Oh, no, yeah, no. She'll have a ball.
Yeah. But so you would go to Mexico City to find that kind of, to try to sort of replicate that kind of experience you had in the 80s and the...
Nope. No.
You said you could find that anywhere.
Back then, it was kind of, there was a measure of safety in it. It no longer works that way.
Safety. It's not just youthful obliviousness.
Or organized crime had a way of living, right?
Right.
Back then. The way of living they have now, it's like so convoluted that everybody is at risk of falling into something really bad to them.
Why do you bring organized crime into this?
Because that's the problem Mexico has. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Right. I was thinking about your block on Sullivan Street.
That's what the press calls. No, this is very different organized crime.
Right. Where people
talking
said,
about-
oh, that's the safest block in New York City because
We're talking
doesn't let anything happen.
We're talking about the cartels extending their way of monetizing.
Right.
Right.
Monetizing what?
Crime.
Right.
And when there's no accountability, guess what happens? Everybody needs to take care of themselves. You can't do this stuff anymore.
Is there no accountability there in Mexico?
No.
The cartel, are the cartels running wild?
Organized crime.
Organized crime.
Yeah.
And that's not always or only the cartels?
No. The Mexican government, it still functions as a government, and it still, and it still fights organized crime, right? But, it's very prevalent, and they have moved to every aspect and every level of society and every sector.
Right.
So you go there, you're careful, and anonymity is great, and and you have a great time, and that's it. You're a tourist, and that's it. You don't.
But sometimes the tourists get clipped.
Yeah, very, very seldomly. Maybe lately more than ever. I don't know. Look, Norm, I can't solve this, right? And I can't tell you what it's so complicated. I've lived here 37 years, more than half my life.
Right.
I have a great bougie life compared to everybody down there.
Right.
You know, my friends struggle. You know,
Your friends what?
they struggle. They have good jobs and they still struggle.
Right.
Yeah.
So many people do.
Yeah, no, it's I mean, we went to the same schools. We went to one of the 3 best schools in Mexico City. We all graduated from college, and and we're all and they're all struggling because they don't have a family business, because they don't belong to the cross, because they didn't marry into it.
Right.
They're normal, so they struggle. They're
Right.
having a really hard time.
Right.
You know?
Oof. All right. So back to SVU.
Yeah, SBA.
SVA.
Yeah.
Oh my God. That's
Well, I went to graduate school because I didn't want to come back to Mexico.
okay. And so you graduate with
Yet again,
with a degree in photography. You're doing tabletop photography.
How annoying am I?
For what kinds of clients?
Well, I did some stuff here and there. I as an F1 visa holder, I was not allowed to work unless I was in practical training. So my practical training was at a studio and with Time Life, doing their lab.
Time Life.
It was Time Warner back then, but
Okay.
it was the famous Time Life lab. It was great. It was a great experience.
And what was that like the Time Life lab?
Oh, I mean, they had top of the line everything. I met Einstein. I met the woman that actually printed for him. I got a stab at it. I did a lot of repro work. They had everything you ever dreamed on a lab, photo lab. You had it. Yeah. And they had big clients, and People Magazine depended on you, and Live Magazine depended on you, and
Because those were all Time Life
yeah, it was in
publications.
Midtown. Yeah.
And so you're shooting for them. Where?
No, I'm a lab assistant.
A lab assistant.
Yeah, you start from the bottom, brother.
And how long did that last?
It lasted about 3 months. Yeah. Yeah.
And then where'd you go?
Then I did a lot of a lot of tabletop. But this is only during the time I was allowed to do this. I don't like messing with the authority, so I would do tabletop. I would do forks and knives and craftspeople and stuff that would go into craftspeople. We used to get into the big shows like the Philadelphia show.
Big shows of arts and crafts?
Yeah, where big buyers come. Where Macy's buyers come, where whatever buyers come.
Gotcha.
Crate and Barrel, whatever. So,
Right.
so I would photograph all their stuff, and that's it.
Huh. And where'd you go after that?
I at some point I had a choice. So I go back to Mexico or try to find a graduate school. So I got into MFA in computer art at School of Visual Arts.
Wait, an MFA in what?
Computer art at School of Visual Arts.
What year is this?
91. No, 90, 93. Yeah.
So computer art was a whole new thing.
Yeah. It was a brand new thing. Yes. Photoshop was version maybe 1.5, 1.8.
1.5, 1.8 what?
Photoshop was version 1.5 or 1.8.
Photoshop version.
Right? So my thesis was I would put all these pictures together with photographs. I would scan them, right? And then put all these totemic kind of images together. And then I would output them into a 4x5 slide. Put the 4x5 slide in an enlarger, project it to a 16x20 litho, or what it was there was a pre-press kind of negative that had tones. And then I would contact print it as a platinum palladium print.
Is it what?
Platinum palladium print. So my whole thesis
Sounds
was about
fancy.
how do you bring digital into analog photography? How
Right.
do you mix both medias? How do you bring technology into art, right? Because that was really sort of the focus of the program. And I was very successful. I got write-ups. I got, in magazine covers. And then I didn't do it. you know. I was assisting photographers, you know, doing work for Business Week, doing like the classic corporate shots. And then one of my classmates called me to come to Ernst & Young and do some work for them. And from there, my corporate career started.
It's a big accounting consulting firm.
Yeah. We were doing presentations for them and interactive. This is the time of they send you a CD-ROM with interactive media in it.
Right.
Yeah, this is that time.
CD-ROM. Yeah, I had CD-ROMs with like the entire National Geographic catalog or something like.
And that's where I got an HTML program, and from there I went into the financial world and started doing very serious stuff.
So you're very serious stuff.
I've always been a hack. I've never been like the guy, you know. I had the drive to actually learn something, and I would bite on it until I got it right. I don't have that anymore.
What does it mean a hack and never the guy? Were you like
well, if you ever wrote any code or any markup language or anything like that, you're always a hack. You hack from somebody else's. That's how you learn, which is the greatest tradition in art too. You know.
Sure.
How do you become an artist? You actually you look at other art.
Yeah.
Then you interpret that art. Then you make your own art, and your own art contributes to that whole tradition.
Right.
Right.
Right. We have like fair use laws here in the U.S. to allow people to build on the shoulders of those who came before them.
Because it's the only way art and a lot of science works.
Progresses.
Right? You can. Yeah, it progresses. It moves on. It changes. It metamorphosizes.
But you call that being a hack.
Because in the field, we call hack.
Okay.
Hacking has a bad connotation to it. You're supposed to be a thief when you're a hacker, right?
Right.
But anybody that's ever done code is a hacker. You just grab stuff, you learn it, you interpret it. Sometimes you copy and paste, which I don't recommend you do that.
Why not?
Because you can do your own. And you learn and you hack and you grab pieces, and sometimes you grab libraries that somebody else has written,
right?
And that are available to you. And you hack stuff together, like you have a machete and you just go chop, 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 chop.
And so you're doing that, and then you start doing it for Ernst & Young.
I started there, and they pushed me to do a presentation to their Cleveland office. And I didn't want to go because I was a freelancer. I really wasn't a staff, right?
Right.
So this guy really wants to take me there so I just resisted. And it was the first time I resisted something. And when I went to Cleveland, it was a mess, because I didn't prepare.
Wait, so you resisted, but you ended up going to Cleveland?
Yeah, I ended up going to Cleveland, because they were paying me. So, but they were asking me these questions that I had no idea. So they knew better than I did, This is why I didn't want to go. I knew they knew better.
Okay.
But my manager didn't care. So, he wanted to shine, and I put some shade in it. So that was the beginning of the end.
Okay.
Yeah. I have a few of those, actually.
A few of those? What are the others? In other realms of your life?
Yeah.
Where shine was called for and you brought shade?
Yeah.
Let's hear it.
Yeah, I'm a system fucker.
What?
Yeah, I am a true system fucker.
A true what?
System fucker.
System fucker.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I live within the system. I love the system. It gives me protection. I love it. But in my work, I've never really obeyed anybody about anything. I have submitted,
Well, you love the system, but you don't really respect.
No,
the system.
because it stifles you, right?
Right.
So, so my best work comes, like everybody, when you're under pressure and you have to deliver something that actually works. And I've done that a lot, and I've done it so hard and so long and for so many hours that I don't want to work that way anymore.
Right. All right. Well, you say your best work, and right away I think of your photography work.
No.
Because, I do. You can't say no, because the sentence is absolutely true. When you say your best work, I think of your photography work. And so when I ask this, did your best photography work come from being under some kind of pressure?
No.
No, not sort of self-inflicted pressure?
No. this my professional work comes out of that
Okay.
pressure. Yeah.
Where does your best photography work come from?
Well,
Your best art?
I think the best photography work I've ever done has been lately, right? You know, you have reached certain maturity, you have felt just enough about everything else that you go and like start seeing the world with your own eyes,
Right.
not with the eyes you think you should see it, right?
Right.
And some of my best work has been coming out now. It's like, what is photographic? I had the luxury on my third year at school, undergrad, to have a photographer that has fallen into disgrace. But, you know, he's the one that told me the greatest tradition artist to contribute to that tradition. And he's the one that ripped my ass open to make me, understand that I had to see something. And that came to fruition, around the time, and
Let the record show he's pointing towards Jen Hammoud, our fabulous producer.
yeah, because it felt I was safe enough to do it, right? And so my pictures are about time, space, what is photographic and what is not. So the pictures are about time, space, and where I am at the moment, but yet the arrangement of them is very, very frivolous and calculated. Because, the photograph has to be
The arrangement, the framing.
it's a graphic, it's a graphic thing. You can tell a story through the graphic part.
Right.
I overdo a little bit that, and I'm not a Gary Winogrand. Well, I forgot his name. Anyway, you get old, you forget everything.
But you're doing.
I'm not that old, though.
You're doing some of the work that makes you happiest right now.
Lee Friedlander, towards the end of Lee Friedlander at some point grabs a Hasselblad, a super white Hasselblad, and starts photographing bushes and rocks in the desert, right? And they're like, and I'm looking at this at the Museum of Modern Art, maybe what was it, 10, 20 years ago? And I'm like, oh my God. The composition, the way these things are photographed. This is so photographic. It's so well done. And that really made
the composition of photos of like rocks and bushes in the desert.
It's just, it's not the Lee Friedlander work that everybody knows.
Right.
But I mean, now they do. But back then it was kind of like, for me,
right.
It was new.
And oh my God.
Yeah.
All right. I want to talk more about this.
Yeah.
We need to stop.
No, we can keep going.
Keep going.
He said it's okay.
We don't have to stop. We can just. Oh, good.
I am so interesting. We can continue.
Well, this. Well, it's. All right, we're gonna go late. So you're doing some of your best work now because you're seeing things not in any of the ways you were taught you should be, but in the way that you.
I can now shoot what interests me, not what I think.
Not what you think should interest you. And I'm very interested in this. You pointed to your girlfriend, your roommate, your fabulous paramour, Jen Hammoud, when this came up.
Yeah.
Has she helped give you the freedom to see things better?
She is very direct. There's no hidden agenda with her.
Right.
And, and I know that when she says...
She's honest.
You didn't unload the dishwasher, she means it, right? It's not an attack on my capacity of doing anything,
Right.
Right? So I think when that happens and when you find that, you're safe.
Right.
And you can take a picture.
And have you not had that safety until
I've been to so many places. I've done so many things, right?
Right.
And the floor that I felt was solid has disintegrated on me so many times.
Right. Been pulled out from under your feet.
Yes. And it's very hard to explain this, but you do lose sense. I mean, I can't really explain it. You do lose sense of everything.
And
when that keeps on happening.
And now you feel you have a firm footing.
Yeah, but I'll tell you, I brought it all up on myself, like we all do. We all bring this stuff up on yourselves because of one X, Y, or Z. Sometimes it's not your fault. Sometimes it is.
Right.
But yeah, I always chose to be in very difficult environments, and I got paid accordingly. So yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So describe a recent photo you've taken that really works for you.
Oh, there's so many.
Just pick
I
one.
have to, so this is the thing. I have this thought about actually putting them together and figuring them out. And then I just go and take a walk because I can't do it. There's so many pictures.
Right.
I've had a couple of, Metro North pictures that are just beautiful. I have a couple pictures taken in Montreal that are they're very special.
And when you happen upon
Even
one,
the Hudson River.
What's that? You love the Hudson?
Yeah,
the Hudson
trees.
River is amazing.
Nothing's more boring than trees, right? But trees can be very interesting.
Yeah.
When you see, do you think the camera is like a one-eye thing, right? There's no three-dimensional. It's all. So it's like you can use what the camera sees to actually say something about what you're looking at,
Right.
For one of the latest pictures, it's like it's a snow mound that basically makes all the trees and everything around it come out of nowhere, right?
Right.
I think that's a comment on like the fragility of everything, that nothing is really what you think it is or want it to be.
Right.
It is what it is.
Right.
It's great. I love that about photography. It's an instant. It's a place. It's what happens in that moment. And that's the one quality photography has and no other plastic art has.
The one quality photography has?
That no plastic art has. It's that one moment.
Right.
You can say that about cinema, but cinema keeps on moving.
Right.
The moving image does that.
But
that's the beauty of the moving
what
image.
you're describing is sort of like a tiny snapshot that evokes your poetic soul.
Well, it's what you see, right?
Well, what you described is like what you brought to what you see.
It's what interests you.
How it resonated and how you describe that.
Yeah. Poetic. I only write poems when I'm really, really, really upset.
You're not writing poems with your photography?
Well, yeah, you can say that. I mean, to me, poetry is...
I'd like to say that. I've seen your
poetry is the only
photography.
true art,
What is?
Poetry is really the only true art.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's so hard.
Why is it so hard? Who are the poets you like?
Ali Calderon. I'm reading Ali Calderon.
Uh-huh.
He has these poems about women that are just so...
Poems about women?
Yeah, so what is the word, lascivious? Or
Sure, it could be.
It's great. He's just like...
I'm sure I wouldn't use that.
The man's a genius. He's a Mexican poet.
Yeah.
Yeah, Mexicans are all about double sense and sex.
But why is poetry the only real art form?
Because it does not have any image to it, and it takes you places. It makes you feel what you feel when you see something, when you see a work of art that touches you. Poetry has that effect without showing you anything.
Okay.
It's just words, right?
The answer I was thinking to that question I asked was because all of the other art forms, when they really work well, are compared to poetry.
Yes. Well, no, that's a mistake. You should never, compare.
Come on, it's my show. Go, come along with me.
Yes, Norm.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. Excellent. And or do you have?
I mean, I'm very opinionated, right?
No.
So when I was younger, there was this guy that worked for my father. He ran a factory or something, and he's a Frenchman that spent a lot of time in New York. I think he lives in Westchester now. And he's like, so he talks to me in English, and I answer, and I give him whatever the spiel. And he's like, oh, he's very opinionated. He's gonna have a hard time, Yeah,
it's a good thing.
Yeah.
So can you recite any poems from heart?
No. No, they come in, and then they don't stay.
Right.
I think nothing stays.
Something stays.
No, ask Jen. No, nothing stays. It's like, oh, we're kind of this at 5 o'clock. I'm like, what are we doing at 5 o'clock? So yeah.
Right.
I'm in my head.
But your youth, your history, your generational trauma, all of these things stay.
Lots of generation trauma,
and define who you are and how you are.
Yeah. A perpetual refugee, yes.
A perpetual refugee.
Yeah.
So you started coming up because your friend had a place in Kingston.
Yeah.
And then you'd take the train, you'd become familiar with Rhinecliff. When did you decide to move here?
It was after 9/11.
Okay.
I had sort of, I became, after 9/11, the company I worked for got sold to a very large corporation. It's now called Thomson Reuters.
Oh.
They were trying to be the number one data providers in the world for financial.
Right.
And so the company got bought, and then 9/11 happened, and I spent 3 years trying to move product into the service that should have taken me 5 days, right? So I experienced a lot of politics and people trying to take passwords away from me, and and I'm like, well, this doesn't belong to you. Why should I do that? Stuff, really, really stuff, nasty stuff, right? They take projects away from me. So I was offered a tenure track at Long Island University, which I had been an adjunct for a while, and I took it, and that was a mistake because I came from corporate. I should have never been there. I think I wasted everybody's time.
You should have never been there in the academic universe.
I did not belong.
Right.
So where was I?
Long Island University.
No, but what was the question? Sorry, it just all came rushing down.
Okay.
Maybe it's time to cut
I think
this.
that brings us full circle. Ricardo Gutierrez De Zubiaurre Garcia Urtiaga.
Thank you.
I'll bet you I pronounced it better at the
Garcia
top of the
Urtiaga
show.
Torrontegui.
Oh, I don't even know what that's not even on my cheat sheet
There's
here.
2 Spanish names in there. The rest are just out of the
Thanks,
waves, man.
Ricardo El Guapo, thank you so much for being
Thank
here.
you.
Everybody who's still listening, thanks for listening late.
Thank you. Yeah.
Matt Rosenberg, Jen Hammoud, thanks for producing
not running
this show
away.
and letting this all happen. And Patricia Wind and the Epicurean, thank you so much for letting us do this.
Thank you,
work.
Patricia.
Everybody
Thank you,
have
Norm.
a great
Thank
Friday
you, Jen.
night and a
Thank you,
fabulous
Matt.
weekend. And thanks for tuning in.
Am I interrupting you?
Yeah, always.
Sorry.
Always. Never not.
Sorry.